Hey guys, welcome back to the Adobe Live YouTube channel. My name is Jacob, better known as by Jacob Paris, and I'm a freelance graphic designer and full-time content creator. And I've partnered with Adobe on an 8-part series teaching you everything you need to know about turning your digital designs into physical art using Adobe Fresco and Adobe Illustrator. Today, we're on episode 5, which is all about building out font libraries and building out color studies. This by far is my favorite part of the design process, and if you missed any of the episodes before, make sure to go back and check that out. It really goes into detail of how we got to this point, and from here, we're just expanding on those previous episodes. So enough of a recap, let's hop into today's episode. So when it comes to building out font libraries as well as color studies, it's very important to be organized. It's very easy to get kind of lost in these ideas and get some decision paralysis, at least for me. So having a very clear-cut understanding of what you want to do and what you want to achieve is very important, as well as making sure it's organized so you can get the most options and as efficiently as possible figure out what works best for you. Luckily, Adobe makes that really easy. Even outside of Illustrator, there's a lot of different resources that you can use in order to gather this information, in order to collect some options, as well as really get an idea of what your end product is going to look like. When I'm designing things, even before I get into the color, I like to start with fonts. So let's hop over to Adobe Fonts and find some options. So here on fonts.adobe.com, you'll see that we already have some suggestions on what we can use for our design. I think it's really important to have your design either next to you or in another window, just so you can kind of look at it and see the vibe that you're going for. If you're just tuning in or you forgot what my design looked like, it looks like this. So for me, immediately what I think of is I want something a little more rounded. I want something softer and something that kind of pops a little bit. It doesn't necessarily take away from the design, but also doesn't blend into the design to where it doesn't stand out and you don't get the actual message that I'm trying to push with this poster. So a great place to start if you're feeling uninspired is just right in the trending tab. You can either do that under the recommendations or where the trending fonts is and just click view more. But what I like to do is I like to kind of start searching through and just find some options for myself that I like a lot. When I'm talking about rounded and softer fonts, this is already something that immediately pops out. So instead of just adding it directly into my fonts, I like to open up a second window just so I can keep up with what the name of the font is, as well as have a multitude of different options of what I can choose from. There's a few different ways that you can organize through this. This is just the easiest for me. And really, I just kind of like to scroll and find some options. I really like this Salvavita font. It looks really cool. And maybe we'll do one more. Maybe like a really funky one. I like this, but I feel like it's not going to be readable enough for what we're trying to do. So maybe we can go into, let's see. I like this. I think this LTR Principia is very cool. So I'm going to open this one up as well. It's a little more squared off than what I initially was thinking of, but I think having some different options is really important because you don't want to just be locked into the same style of font for every single iteration of this design. I think the important thing to remember is really kind of go out with your own comfort zone. Don't necessarily rush this process. Just work within your parameters and within your time frame and, have fun with it because this is the explorative process of designing and it can be really fun. So let's go back to the homepage and let's get some other options. Maybe we'll go to Browse All. When you're in Adobe Fonts, I like this Browse All option a lot because you can really hone in on exactly what you're looking for and we can narrow down what we already were talking that we were looking for. So under the tags, we could click on any of these options. I personally wanted something rounded, so I'm going to click rounded. If you want to go even deeper, you can click on you want it to be sans serif, serif, hand-drawn, slab serif. Really, these are just going to be distinctions in order to get closer to what you're looking for. You can also change the properties of the fonts, like how many font families there are at a minimum, the weight of the font, and the contrast. For me, I think I want something in this middle. The width, I'd probably, again, want something more in the middle, but I also wouldn't mind a little bit of a thicker font. But looking at these, kind of like, not really the vibe. So kind of just mess around with the options, see what pops up, and eventually you're probably going to come across something that you really like because the Adobe Font Library is really useful. And my favorite part about the Adobe Font Library, if we click on Decoy right here, is all of the Adobe fonts are cleared for personal and commercial use, which is really useful because if you didn't know this, quick little tip, not all fonts are available for commercial use. So keep that in mind when choosing your fonts for your projects, you want to respect these people that are doing these font libraries and putting in a lot of work to get these in products. So like I said, I like this decoy option, so we'll go ahead and open this one up as well. And another thing that I really like about Adobe fonts is the fact that you can kind of go in and you can see some recommendations that are similar to what you initially looked at. So say I like this one a lot, but maybe I don't like the U of this design, then I can come down here and I can see, okay, there's Kansas Bold, Italic, Jellica, there's Rooney, there's Serenia, Roca. There's just so many options that you can just keep going through. And really the ideas and possibilities are endless, which is really, really nice. And just from going through the recommended and suggested, I found this really cool font called Kit, designed by a few different people. Looks like mostly Darden Studios, Evan and O'Neill. I like this font a lot. I feel like this is definitely kind of in the realm of what I was thinking of. So I think we have a good selection already, and I'm gonna download them. So if you're trying to import your fonts directly into Illustrator, it's actually really easy. You just have to click add font and you'll see fonts available in your Adobe apps. It makes them available across the entire cloud. So if you want to use it in Express or Illustrator or Photoshop, they're all there. It's very, very, very convenient. Same with this one. We'll just add this Jellica medium and come down here. Let's add Salbabida and let's do this Omnis. This one's pretty cool too. We'll add a few of these options. Sweet. So let's pop over into Illustrator and let's start messing around with the orientation of the typeface. Okay, we're back in Illustrator, pretty much where we left off in our last video. We have our characters built out here. And typically I like to start with the typeface and how the typeface is built out first, even before we move into color, because our text is also going to be colored as well. So we want to make sure that we have everything laid down and put together before we really get into the nitty-gritty of actually getting these colors down. We want to separate the process of line work and coloring. Really, it's not super important which direction you go into, but for me, I like to get everything down. It just helps with a bit more of a cleaner flow, and I don't have to kind of go back and change things, especially if I'm expanding my artwork. It can just be more hurt than help, to be honest. So there's a few different ways that we can approach the font hierarchy or the layout of the quote that we are trying to put down here. So I had this really cute idea for a phrase for this poster. I came up with this off screen and it was just dreams take root where mushrooms bloom. Kind of like an uplifting play on words, like you start with your ideas in the soil. It starts with a seed and then they grow and bloom and blossom, kind of, I don't know, something cute. I thought it was cute, so that's what I decided on. So I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller, bring this over to the side, and let's just go ahead and copy and paste that. We wanna have a few options of this typeface, so I'm just gonna choose one of the fonts that we already used. We'll start with Kit. And let's maybe mess with this orientation. Really all I'm doing is just messing with the paragraph and the characters panel to change the sizing, maybe make sure it looks a little more centered. So this is kind of cool. We can even maybe change the distance in between them to about here. Yeah, this is not too bad. We can align this. Let's align this to, let's group this character up by highlighting and clicking Command G. Let's actually just double click on this. When you see this blue highlighted panel like this, they're gonna align to whatever has this more pronounced blue line work. So you'll notice when I click align, it's gonna align to this, or if I click here, it's gonna align to this and not the other way around. I think I wanna move this over just a hair. Sweet, so we can go ahead and click Command G, group that up together. Let's make this a little smaller and let's make another artboard for ourselves. Let's go to Window, Artboard. Let's make 2 even, just so we can get a few options down. So like I said, I like this one. Let's copy this over, drag it right near it, and maybe let's go with an arc this time. It's important to kind of just get all these ideas out there. It's very similar to the sketching process. There isn't really any wrong way to do this. You just want to kind of throw caution to the wind and explore as many options as possible. Dreams take root where mushrooms bloom. Helps if you can spell. So let's change the size of this a little bit, maybe like here, and then we can go like this. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm not super stoked on this. I feel like it could be better, but this does give me another idea. Let's copy over our characters. Now let's try something kind of funky. What if we zoomed in grabbed our pen tool, switched over to the stroke panel. And what if we just followed the natural shape of our characters like this? And then what if we grab the type on path tool and do this? Dreams take root where mushrooms bloom. Let's change the size of that a little bit so it'll fit. Okay, I actually kind of like that. That's really cool. So let's change the size of this a bit. Yeah, wow, that looks really, really cool. I like that. It's a little different, but it kind of makes this, I don't know, it pulls it all together in a weird way. So if you're like me and if you've landed on a general idea of the shaping of your typeface looks like, then you can go and delete your first two, maybe make a few more options for yourself just by highlighting and clicking Command C and Command V. And then let's change up the fonts just right beside each other, just so we can get a general idea of what they would look like with the other options. So one of the other fonts we got was named Sal Babiba. So we'll go ahead and try that one out. I like it, but I don't know if it's as readable as I would like for it to be. So let's try another one too. Let's try that Omnes that we downloaded. This one's also pretty nice. I feel like it's got some nice little shapes to it. It has nice spacing between the letters. If you don't like how some of these letters are spaced as well and you want to maybe change it up a little bit, you can always go in and you can go to your characters panel and you can down here in the with this little icon that looks like a VA and the arrows at the bottom, you can just click that number up about as much as you want and you can either bring those letters in or have them come out. But I don't know if that's going to change my opinion on this font for this specific project. Funny enough, I am kind of leaning towards our first option, the first font that we landed on. It doesn't always happen this way. I would say actually a majority of the time it doesn't happen this way, but if it works, it works. So we're gonna roll with that. So once you have your font established and you have your character designed, now it's time to move into colors. So let's orient our artboard to be prepared to have some of those color options. All right. So pretty much all I did was just copy and paste the characters over and removed everything else from the artboard, cleaned it up a little bit. I have another artboard over here just so we can continue to mess around with options, because having options in this process is really, really important, like super important, because you don't want to be locked into one thing. It could just make things kind of difficult for you. But what we can do is right before you get into the coloring process, you definitely want to look at your design and make sure that you're happy with all the things that are going on in the actual line work itself. So immediately there's a few things that I noticed that I kind of want to change. This line isn't connecting and this just looks a little too thick. It looks like all these lines are touching. So maybe we'll change this to 12. Maybe we can go even lower, maybe 10. 10 looks good to me. And let's just make sure we connect this line. Sweet. When moving into color, there's a few different ways to approach it. Obviously, you want to have some point of basis to bounce off of, unless you can just pull things from your head and kind of just go with it and you know exactly what colors look like. Then hey, that also works too. I personally am a colorblind artist, so I do have a bit of trouble coloring my artwork, so I do have to use a lot of reference. Reference also helps with making sure that you have very specific colors for your characters. So when I'm looking up reference, really all I do is I just kind of Google up whatever specific object or character that I'm trying to do and just import it directly into Illustrator. So in this case, we can just grab this image off of the internet and copy and paste it directly into Illustrator. I like to choose images that have very bold colors, like these bold browns, these lighter cream colors, things that contrast really, really well, because that helps overall with the process of having these characters stand out. You don't want colors that kind of mix into each other because it just starts to make things complicated. We also would probably want this mushroom to look similar to like those Mario mushrooms, like a reddish color. So we can bring one of those in here as well. And for these, I'm literally just copying them off of the internet and then pasting them directly into my Illustrator artboard. It's very convenient. You don't even have to save it to your desktop. And maybe for our last few options, I can look up armor, because one of our characters does have this kind of armor that he's wearing, as well as his sword. Honestly, this clip art kind of works pretty well. You can also use Adobe stock if you want to reference some colors or reference some images. In this case, we're not really using it for commercial, so it is okay to just get it directly off of Google. And maybe let's do like a wizard, and let's copy this one over. Sweet. So now we have some little points of reference, and a really easy way to pull colors from this reference is, yeah, you could go in and you could eye drop each individual color and, try to get in between those nooks and crannies to get the colors that you're looking for. Or all you need to do is click on your image, go to Object, and Create Object Mosaic. It's gonna bring up this window. This number of tiles is essentially how many pixels are going to be taken from your image. And if you want to have a lot of colors that you can reference from, you can do maybe like 15 or 20. In this case, I think I'm going to stick with 15 just as a start. Click OK, and you'll notice it's pixelizing all of those colors for you and making it much easier to just pull from instead of having to kind of do the guesswork. You can also use just the direct selection tool if you want to have those colors show up in your fill panel over here. Just makes it a lot easier, and you have a lot of options to kind of mess around with. So we can do that with a few more. We can do this with this one. Go to Object, Create Object Mosaic, click OK. You'll see it's pulling those reds and those creams. Same with this character here. Super easy, really convenient way to just get colors super fast. Now that we have some of our colors, what we can do is we can start messing around with coloring our characters and getting them ready to pretty much be finished. The first and most important thing you need to do in order to have your characters colorable, I guess would be the word, is ungroup them and click on one of your pieces of vector art and go to Object and Expand. Expanding your artwork is going to allow you to use the Live Paint Bucket tool to color in your artwork. You can get to the Live Paint Bucket tool by clicking K on your keyboard, and you'll see it'll bring up this Live Paint Bucket tool option right here. The Live Paint Bucket tool is really useful for painting in vector art because it is literally like coloring by numbers. All you have to do is just click on a specific shape in your vector art, and then it colors it in. Super easy. So you can kind of see where this is going, where we can use our eyedropper tool, choose one of these cream colors, like maybe this one, click K, and then just color in our character like this. Super easy, super convenient, and honestly, my favorite part because it's really fun and I kind of just get to mess around with coloring stuff in all day. So let's go to our other character, our kind of paladin character. Let's do the same thing. Click Object and Expand. And you'll notice it expanded when you see these anchor points and these dots here where the ends of your lines are. Let's do the same for our little wizard Morel. Let's click Expand. Boom. Perfect. So now we are ready for coloring. And really, with coloring, there is no rhyme or reason on how to do this. For me, I kind of just like to lay some stuff down and see how it works. I also like to use these methods of making mosaics and pulling from the internet in tandem with Adobe Colors. If you're not familiar with Adobe Colors, it's extremely useful for finding complementary or supplementary colors for your designs. And if you're really stuck on a color, or if you really like a color and you want to find something that complements that color, then using that tool is great for that. And I highly encourage it if you're ever feeling stuck in your artwork. But in this case, for this example, we're just delving right into it. So I'm gonna get some colors laid down on this first pass, and I'll come back to you once this is finished up. Well, that's our first character pretty much done. Now to move on to the other two. All right, that second character is looking pretty decent to me. I feel like it's looking pretty cool. You'll probably notice that I'm reusing some colors in between the two characters. I just like consistency across most of my posters. It makes it easier for printing as well as just designing in general. Having these consistent colors across the board can just really save you some time. So that leaves us with our last character, so let's hop into it. I'm gonna turn my text back on real quick, but yeah, I'm really liking the direction of this already. But this isn't where it ends. We can expand on this even further, which I think is really cool. Adobe has this really cool feature in Illustrator that I feel like if you're not using, you should be using, because it helps so much with just getting out of the stumps of being stuck on one color, and that is called generative recolor feature. I'm just gonna copy over my character right here and show you how easy this is to do. So let's zoom in, click on our characters like this, and let's go to edit colors, generative recolor. And you'll see this panel. Generative recolor is very similar to Adobe Firefly when it comes to prompts, where all you really have to type in is medieval mushroom character in a mute earth tone dark fantasy color scheme. So let's go ahead and click enter, and you'll see we'll have 4 sample prompts pop up. So when we click on those sample prompts, you'll get some really wacky color designs, which I think is super fun and super sweet. It's a really good way to kind of get out of that like weird slump, for me at least, because I can pull some of these colors and kind of like reference them in other things. I think this dark fantasy might be throwing off our prompt a little bit, so maybe we'll do earth tone dark and go ahead and search again. Yeah, so this is kind of in the realm that I'm thinking of. This is more into like the brownish reds, and this is like more blues, but maybe we'll go. I'm liking this take a lot. So this is super cool. This is kind of giving like a medievally sepia tone vibe. But let's do it again. Let's drag this over here. Let's do this, copy this over, and click on all of our characters. Go to edit colors, generative recolor. And let's just type in dark fantasy. Maybe if we can spell it right. Dark fantasy, and see what happens. I've been obsessed with the AI dark fantasy TikTok thing, so maybe that's why I've got this stuck in my head. And you can see it's kind of getting that like, you know, purpley colors. Ooh, I really like this. I don't think we're gonna use this, but I think this is really cool. I think it looks like they're in nighttime. I don't know. That's crazy. Also very cool. Dark fantasy looks like it's giving us a lot of blues. So maybe we can try, what if we just typed in light fantasy, browns? Because I think we should stay in our earth tones because these are earthy mushrooms. Definitely not exactly in the realm that we're looking for, but good to kind of break out of some options. I'll probably keep this one around just in case, but I like this one. I like this one a lot, and it is an even better expansion on what I colored, in my opinion. This is something that personally, for my eyes, I'd never be able to pull together. And I really like this as a tool just to like get to this point. It's super easy and super convenient. And we're like really close to a finished product. So now what we can do is we can start orienting our artboard and getting the final touches to our poster in order to make it ready for printing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull this over to my other artboard over here. I'm gonna group these together, and I'm gonna size this up to about maybe here. Let's bring this down just a hair. And you know what would look really nice with these characters? Let's give them a little shadow, give them a bit of depth. And let's push that shadow all the way to the back just by clicking Command in the brackets. Let's transform this to make this a little smaller. Maybe align it with our characters. Yeah, that's sweet. I'm really liking that. Let's group that together. Actually, let's ungroup our characters, because what I also want to do is I also want to add just like a little bit of a stroke to our text, just so it has a nice little outline behind it and it pops a little bit more. So I'm just going to click Command C and Command V. Click on our original one that is not copied above it, and let's just make this stroke say that big. If you don't want these little spikies coming out like I have here, you can actually go over to your stroke panel and just click on the rounded caps and rounded corners, and that'll fix that problem. Let's change that color over to like one that'll pop out. This won't be the main color that we use, but we'll just do like a dark gray for now. And I think this is looking so sweet. Like, I'm really happy with how our characters have fleshed out and how they look like they're in a medieval setting. And it was really just a combination of a little bit of reference on the internet and the use of some Adobe tools. And now we're in a great position to just expand on this even further in the next episode and kind of go from there. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope that your creative process is coming along just like mine is. This has been a ton of fun to record, and I hope it's been as fun to watch. We're so close to finishing up. We only have 3 more episodes left, which feels kind of crazy. crazy, but the next 3 are going to be some really big ones. Next episode, we're learning all about making your art fit anything and really delving into mock-ups, poster orientation, and how to digitally recreate products that you want to produce so the companies that you're working with that are producing them have a better idea of what you want your end goal to look like. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.